Hello, welcome to Recapping with Delora
and Ashley.
Please follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Recapping Podcast.
Also, comment, rate, and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. We're on all the things.
We would love to hear your ratings of the movies and shows we review.
Email us your audio file to recappingpodcast@gmail.com and we will play it during the show.
Or DM us on Instagram and we will post and read it on air.
Thank you guys so much for listening.
Thank you.
Well, hello, Delora. We are back on the mic. What's going on, girl?
Hey, Ashley. I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm good. I'm tired because one of my hidden gems for next week kept me up till the early hours of the morning because that's how hooked I was watching it in bed on my phone. Okay. Usually when I go to my room and I turn on something on my phone, that's the time that it's like, okay, we're going to stop because I'm not watching it on my big screen. But nope, I stuck it all the way through. So that's why I'm a little bit exhausted. But otherwise, I'm here. I'm rocking with you and I'm ready to go.
Yes.
So first things first, this was not on our list, but we talked about it off mic. Just want to make a brief mention of the fact as we get into our quick headlines that the jury has awarded Vanessa Bryant and co-plaintiff Christopher Chester $31 million in damages for the crash photos that were out there from the crash that took the lives of Kobe, Gianna, and multiple other victims that day in a helicopter crash. So that news did just come out as of the day that we're recording. So we did want to mention that briefly.
Thank you for that update. I'm so happy that it was a unanimous verdict because she shouldn't have been in this position to begin with.
Yeah, and it's so devastating and tragic the way that all of this unfolded. So it's been sad to see her continue to be kind of pulled through this situation. And even the picture of seeing Monica and Sierra come and sit with her and be with her during the trial.
Yes.
I mean, wonderful to have your friends when you need them. But I was like, this is too much for her to be having to go through.
And it's the same week as Kobe's birthday. Like,
yeah.
He would have been 44 years old. Rough.
Happy heavenly birthday. All right, let's dive in to our other quick headlines. Our first one, we have two weddings to discuss. Our first one is Sarah Hyland. The eldest Dunphy child is officially off the market.
Yes, she is.
I honestly wasn't sure I was going to see this happen, and I think they weren't quite sure either at this point. So it's Sarah Hyland and her boo thing, Wells Adams, who got married. Looking at pictures, I'm looking at People in my first article because I have like 3 up for this. I'm looking at the cast kind of reunion photo that we have that Sofia Vergara posted. I'm not sure where Ed O'Neill, Ty Burrell, and Eric Stonestreet were, but
I guess they couldn't make it.
Yeah, we have pretty much everybody else. I mean, Phil needs to be there though. Phil is TV dad. Like, what are we doing, Phil? What are you doing, Ty?
But the fact that Jesse officiated is like everything. Everything. I love it.
I love the picture. She wore 2 dresses, which were beautiful.
Vera Wang.
There's a whole Vogue photo shoot that they did. So there are a bunch of pictures and an article out there just kind of explaining again their journey to the altar. They have been engaged since 2019. Obviously, the pandemic pushed them back multiple times from being able to get married, as it did for many people that I'm sure can relate to that. And they did it. They got married on Saturday at Sunstone Winery near Santa Barbara, California. You know who was also there? Chris Harrison.
Yes, because it's so funny because I've seen her and her fiance in the news for a while. And it did not occur to me until recently that he was absolutely a contestant on The Bachelorette.
Yes, he was.
And he was also in the Bachelor Paradise
Yes.
shows and everything. So
he's the bartender. He has
Yes.
been a mini host when they've needed him to be. And I know that just from the one season of Bachelor in Paradise that I watched that was
I've never watched.
hella messy. Because that was the one where Brendan showed his whole ass.
The one from Rachel's season?
The one from, was that Rachel's season? The one with the turtlenecks.
Mm-mm. No, I don't think so.
He was a season that I watched, but I can't remember which season it was. No, he was the one where they switched. It was Tayshia. He was the one who was in like Tayshia's top 3.
Yes. And we loved him. And
we did
betrayed us. That's right.
Oh, broke my heart. Yeah, it was ugly. So yeah, Wells, you know, I would say that this is a beautiful, exciting, happy news for them. They were finally able to walk down the aisle.
Yes.
But again, I wasn't sure if we were going to see this day. So I was surprised still when it finally came up. I was like, yes, hallelujah. You guys did it. I thought maybe we were just going to be engaged forever. So congratulations to the couple for sure.
She looks so beautiful and they look so happy. And what I love about this is it reminds me how old she really is. Like, she's 31. She played so much younger when she was on Modern Family, a show that is so near and dear to us. So happy to see the reunion and happy for the new couple.
It's also interesting. I had just read on CNN that she was talking about she may not take her husband's last name. Her mom didn't take her father's last name, so she said she hadn't decided. I love little nuggets like that. Like, yeah. Do your thing out here, Sarah. Do your thing. So let's move on to our second wedding, which is literally a second wedding, and that is for Bennifer. We talked about the Vegas nuptials. We talked about her beautiful dress that she had saved from a movie. But for this one, she went all out. She was truly Jennifer Lopez.
First of all, she was trying to play us at like, I'm just Jenny from the block. No, no.
Yeah, she pulled out all the stops.
The Jennifer Lopez with 3
Ralph Lauren beautiful dresses. Did you have a favorite of the 3?
I absolutely did. My favorite out of the 3 was the beaded one.
Interesting. My favorite is the backless with the high neck and the long train.
Mm-hmm.
Stunning. Simple.
How long is the night to have time?
It's as long as we need it to be. It's absolutely as long as they needed it to be for her to get all her looks in. Didn't Paris Hilton do like 3 or 4 dresses?
But you do know the hair is different. I doubt the makeup is that different, but still.
When you have a hair and makeup team, it's nothing. It's cake, right? It's nothing. And one of the things that I love that I read as I was going through about their wedding and their nuptials is, well, first of all, we should talk about the fact that Casey Affleck didn't show. Supposedly he had some type of parental obligation that he shouldn't. It's still his brother. I know he has his ish, but
he has his ish, and I don't know if J-Lo might wanted to have been around that. That's my.
Oh, so you think maybe he was told to stay away?
Easily.
Could be, you know, family and all that. He did post something on social media, which I guess is nice. But I loved that Kevin Smith, in an article I'm reading from Yahoo, Kevin Smith, who I didn't realize he coined Bennifer. Where have I been? He said he bawled throughout the ceremony. It was overwhelmingly emotional. He said, fuck was one of the most beautiful events I've ever been present for in my life. That's so beautiful.
That is beautiful. Again, back to the 3 dresses really quick. Does Ben care? Who is she doing this for?
For us.
It's for her at this rate.
It's for us. It's for the fans. She knows her fans, especially now that she has this newsletter and everything. The content, the looks. I mean, it's Jennifer Lopez. So,
yeah.
When we talked about this before, I said, oh, maybe she doesn't care anymore, because she has the man. What do you need all the extras when you have the man of your dreams? But she said, no, I still got to serve y'all some looks, still got some helicopter overhead photos. So it was what it was. All the kids were present. Everybody wore white. So
yes, I
beautiful.
do love that about it. And the sneak peek that she provided on her Instagram, her makeup looked fire, but it came with a womp womp when you find out that they got married on Ben's freaking plantation in Georgia.
Yeah.
I'm like, that really rubbed me the wrong way. So it's just like, oh, I'm such a fan of this Bennifer 2.0, but this is not a fun fact for me.
My brother had just sent a message to me, I think a little bit before we started recording, and it's from Black Enterprise talking about J-Lo faces backlash after marrying Ben at his plantation style estate. So
what type of backlash, though?
It just says coming under fire.
Yeah. I mean, we do it for Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds all the time. That comes up often. Like, as much as we appreciate them, it's like, y'all got married on a freaking plantation. Like,
well, but this is actually Ben's house that was built in 2000, and it was built to resemble a southern plantation. So,
but it was on slave land, though.
Y'all think this aesthetic is cute?
Yeah, right. You wanted a big house. Got it.
That's all I'm saying. Yes, I see. It says even more disturbing findings revealed the home was built on land owned by a slave owner and plantation manager. But again, y'all thought this aesthetic was cute. This was intentional.
A Boston man, by the way.
Yeah, and we don't have to even get into all that. I'm no shade to Boston. I've just heard some things.
No,
what I mean?
We just, as Black people, we have heard things about Bostonians and Black folks. That's all.
There is someone who said plantation style weddings are just as sick and inappropriate as slave quarter Airbnbs. They must be called out. Also, J-Lo is now officially a white Latina. No one with a real Black abuela would co-sign this Gone with the Wind BS. Well, there you go.
I have nothing else to say, Ashley.
All right, let's move on to our final quick headline, which is the FBI and this report from 2016 on Angie and Brad and that whole situation that happened on an airplane. I called this, for some reason, for all the headlines this week, I kind of put like my own headline. So I labeled this Loose Lips and Unsealed Docs. So let's talk about some of the things that were discussed. In an article from Entertainment Weekly, it says an explosive FBI report is shedding new light on an allegedly violent incident between Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt on their private plane. It's a heavily redacted report, but Jolie is identified as AJ, and she accused Brad Pitt at the time, who was her husband, of physical assault as the family returned to California after a 2-week trip. The actor allegedly led Angelina to the back of the plane where he grabbed her by the head and shoulders and shook her while yelling, "You're effing up this family." Pitt also allegedly punched the ceiling of the plane 4 times. Per the report, when Angie opened the door, 2 of her children were outside the door crying and asked, "Are you okay?" And Brad Pitt reportedly replied, "No, Mommy's not okay. She's ruining this family." He also allegedly poured beer on Angie while she was under a blanket with the kids. Delora, Brad Pitt's camp is basically saying that this is just a publicity stunt and an attack on him. Why is this coming back up after 6 years?
Because he has a movie out. I feel like the information is probably available now, and what perfect time to release it than his big blockbuster film Bullet Train. I feel like I am on no one's side in this scenario because we do not know all the facts. However, I will say Angie seems like the type of person, or her team is like, anytime is a good time to remind people what it is about this man over here.
Oof.
So
This was wild when I first read it, right? Because again, it has been so long. We had just talked a couple of weeks ago. We were talking about Angie taking their daughter to Spelman.
yes.
That this had been so messy for so long and still kind of was ongoing. And then this comes out.
And you remember we saw that interview and the reporter asked him about his daughter going to Spelman and the sadness in that man's eyes. He was like,
well,
yeah.
You
and
said
it's
he
like,
looked sad. And I was like, maybe he's just
I
doesn't
don't
want to
think
be
he
asked.
probably seen her. I don't think he probably seen some of his children in some time.
Obviously, there's a lot more that went on, and we knew this before than we were ever going to be made aware of. But I think to this extent, I always thought that maybe it was a situation where one parent wanted to be a little more disciplinary in a physical way than the other.
Yeah.
So this coming out about, you know, a little bit more violence than I had anticipated hearing about was definitely
towards her too, towards
her. It took me aback. You know what I mean? So
absolutely.
I read it and I was like, damn, this is
what is killing me is I'm only able to find this in print. It's not on any of the gossip social media sites. E-News ain't really talking about it. Like Entertainment Tonight, Extra, Access. Where's their story? It's definitely, you would think something like this would be A block information.
Well, I think maybe it's a factor of the machine and people obviously wanting to protect, but it's also, I mean, it is both the truth. It is the truth to a certain degree when in this article they're saying that there's nothing new here. Obviously, the FBI chose not to pursue any charges or anything at the time.
Very true.
And so maybe a lot of those outlets honestly already knew a lot of this information. So to them, it's not new, but to a lot of us in the public.
Yes, because to the public, we always knew something happened on that PJ, right? And we don't know what it was. And then here it is, us getting some light, although it was heavily redacted.
You know what I found so fascinating in these later years of Angelina Jolie's life, career, all of that, is how reserved she is now. Because I feel like an Angelina back in the day would have been more forthcoming about certain things. Like she was just a little bit more wild back in the day than she is now,
and outspoken, and she still is outspoken, but
about her causes. Absolutely.
Yes.
But in terms of her personal life, but I get it too. They were under such a magnifying glass that has to do something to you, that has to change your
it was
actions.
A seismic shift when he left Jennifer.
That still breaks my heart.
Breaks
my heart. Because I told you I went back and I read this like 2005 like Vanity Fair article that Jen did, and she cried at the end when the reporter said that she had heard that Angie was pregnant. So that was before she found out.
That really was in the news.
That was in the article because she started crying and she refused to like speak on it, because I think at the time it was, well, Brad and I discussed this, there's no third party involved, this is us deciding to go our separate ways. But ma'am, she had a baby 9 months, like almost to the day after y'all filed.
Yeah,
heartbreaking. So no, I will never get over that. But at the same time, this is wild. And it does. I remember Angie saying, like, it took a lot for me to make the decision to leave the father of my children. I didn't make that decision lightly. Evidentiary support, perhaps. Anything else to add to this quick headline?
No, ma'am.
All right, let's move into our two hot topics, both music related today. The first one, I know you had to hear about this Capitol Records AI rapper situation.
It came and went real quick, didn't it?
It did, but it still freaked me out. Capitol Records has severed ties with artificial intelligence rapper FN Mika. and they issue an apology after facing criticism for gross stereotypes. On August 14th, Capitol Records announced that it had signed this digital rapper and TikTok influencer labeled as the world's first AR artist to sign with a major label. The artist was described as an AI-powered robot rapper, and the first single on the label was Florida Water Gross, which featured Gunna and gaming streamer Clicks. Hours before they made the announcement, there was an activist group called Industry Blackout that released a statement calling for the label to cut ties, specifically because, again, of the way that it is showing a lack of sensitivity towards the Black community. It was said that this AI rapper used the N-word in songs, but was supposedly created by white creators. And it also, apparently, there was an image of this AI rapper being brutalized by police, all these things.
Yes.
I mean, it's just a mess. Like, even hearing about the way that they created it and the way that one of the creators tried to make it seem like, oh, this is a way of making sure that record labels get the success they're looking for, because with regular traditional human beings, the success rate is only 1%. Like, what did you think? I mean, first of all, what do you think about the idea of signing AI rappers? And then secondarily, did you have any additional thoughts about the controversy?
Well, it's so funny that this news came out because speaking of e-news, I was watching Daily Pop, one of my favorite shows, and they were talking about an AI model just signed with one of those teenage brands, something Sun. I can't remember the brand right now. And so the idea is, when you have AI, especially if you're talking about a model or a rapper, guess what? They are that age forever. They're less likely to cause controversy or get canceled. And there's more control and all revenue coming into these executive pockets. But when I saw this particular AI rapper, my first thought was, this looks demonic. Like, what the fuck is this? Like, he looks insane. Yeah. Obviously racially ambiguous, but we obviously know where they were leaning. But it was just absolutely disgusting. Like, this one person on Twitter, I thought their insights was pretty good. It's carlyhustle.nah. It says no one. And then there's a semicolon blank. And then it says white music executives left in the room unsupervised. Let's create an artificial rapper who says the N-words and simulates our deepest fetishes and fantasies about Blackness and materialism. And he will never get arrested unless we want him to, which is a fun storyline. Let's try that. Like, commenting on the picture of this clown being beat by a white officer. When I saw that picture, I was thoroughly disgusted. And when I saw that Capitol Records severed their ties, I'm like, well, at least someone had some sense. Maybe not initially, but there was no way something like this would be okay. But they tried it and they found out, Ashley.
When this news first came out that they had signed an AR artist, I was like, I'm old, because this sounds scary as fuck to me. Like, I don't like all of this. What are we saying when the arts are being taken over by computer generated robotic things? Like, is my music is sacred. You know, I love music. I don't want this. It
evokes emotion. How can you evoke emotion from something that is soulless, right?
I just always go back to the movie Surrogates with Bruce Willis, where they stopped even living lives. They just went and plugged into a chair and let their little robots go live their lives for them. Like, anytime I hear about certain progress in technology, I just think I don't need to be around for those days. Like, I think the arts need to be left alone. I get that technology has really helped us in so many ways, and that we will continue to progress in that area. But this news didn't excite me at all.
Benefit from it.
Yeah, obviously. This news did not excite me. So then when it came up about who this was created by, the fact that it's another attempt to you know, do what some white folks have been doing for a very long time. Didn't surprise me, but it was swift.
It was swift. This other tweet is a reply to the one I read before. It says, oh, they love him. They're like 0% royalty payments, 100% revenue, full control. This is the Jimmy Iovine and Jim Crow dream collab.
Yeah, because who are they really paying, and how did the negotiations really work when it comes to something like this? So many things that I'm not sure were discussed or discovered yet, but I hope this is it. Let this be a little experiment that dies right here. I know it's not, but I wish it was. Let me read their little apology real quick. They said, we offer our deepest apologies to the Black community for our insensitivity in signing this project without asking enough questions about equity and the creative process behind it. Who signed to Capitol Records still? Lil Baby, Snoop, 50, Sam Smith, Ice Cube. I'm sure even if it hadn't been this, there may have been other artists who would have started speaking out on this as well, unless they figured out a way to cash in, because that's another thing. If people can find ways to cash in, they may be all for it. Let's move on to our final hot topic of the day. Again, another music related. Diddy has caused controversy. He has declared that R&B is dead. Caused many an artist to speak out, including Usher, who I don't think I had ever heard Usher really upset, maybe outside of his trial with his ex-wife. He felt some type of way about his old friend Diddy speaking out on the state of R&B. And he wasn't alone. Chris Brown, Summer Walker, some other folks had some thoughts and some comments. He did try to clarify. And he said on Twitter, it's been 3 days of the debate. This is the clarity of the message. It's not disrespect to anybody. This conversation was out of love and me purposefully wanting to bring attention to R&B. It was something that I saw the effect of the hip hop and R&B balance. That balance is honesty and realness when it comes together, melodies, vulnerability, and most importantly, love. This message is that R&B game needs more love, vulnerability, and support. Delora, is R&B dead?
Absolutely not. I think my favorite response to this obvious marketing ploy by Diddy would be Usher's response to it. He's like, you wouldn't have hip hop without R&B. R&B is a slow burn. And again, to his point, he was talking about how, the Superstar Challenge and even the resurgence of his music, courtesy of the Tiny Desk. If R&B didn't have the staying power, it wouldn't matter as much as it does. You know what I mean? And again, hip hop wouldn't exist because guess what hip hop always pulls from? R&B, from the past, the present.
Them samples.
When I tell you, one of my favorite Afrobeats artists, Burna Man, he sampled Toni Braxton's song. He's like, she getting like over 60% of my check because I decided to sample one of her songs. Like, R&B is not dead, Ashley. Is it the, genre on top right now? No. And it hasn't been since the 90s, in my personal opinion. But we know that with each new generation, it's a wheel. So something's going to be on top. Other things are going to be on the bottom again, or you just need white people to sing it. That's another controversial hot take there. I.e. Adele, Sam Smith, etc.
Justin Bieber trying to put out an R&B album.
Can we not forget? I mean, Usher did that, so I don't know. But what I'm trying to say is this. I mean, that's why we got freaking Beyonce and Renaissance, bringing back house music from the 90s, late 80s, 90s. You understand? So
70s even.
Yes.
Yeah. R&B is my absolute love, my favorite genre of music. I understood when I heard this debate, and I've heard so many conversations about it. Shout out to my guys at the ITL. I listened to their conversation about it too. I understand the sentiment behind thinking that R&B is dead, because it feels like nobody's really making the R&B of the love song generation, of the crooners, of certain types of content. It seems like it's just changed. And change is inevitable, but to say that R&B is dead is absolutely false, right? You still have great R&B artists making great music. Is it the most popular art form, to your point? I think you said it so well. No, it's not. But like Chris Brown said, R&B ain't dead. Y'all are just ugly. So let somebody really popular, let somebody, come up and find that mood or that time again when it's ripe for profit as well as for listenership, and boom, it's going to be back to what it was. And everything is cyclical anyway. So
Yes.
the R&B of the 90s, I still go back and listen to heavy, because you can't tell me nothing about somebody who can sing. Talk about Miss Toni Braxton. I still go back and listen to I Want Me Some Him, and just all those great songs, ballads, all that stuff. But there's still variations of that today. Like I said, there's still some great artists putting out music, so I get why certain artists may have felt attacked by those statements. But Diddy is gonna say what he's gonna say, and he's not the arbiter of taste or of the industry. So it was just one man's opinion. There you go. Anything additional for this before we move into our microdose?
Watch this.
All right, kids, we do have a microdose today because Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon. I was not prepared for that. That was brilliant.
Thank you.
That was wonderful. We are back in the world of Game of Thrones, and we're back at King's Landing, baby.
Them Thrones.
Record-breaking premiere of House of the Dragon on Sunday. Nearly 10 million people tuned into this episode. Broke HBO Max. Okay?
Them dragons.
Biggest audience for any new original HBO series ever.
Period.
There are so many thoughts. I've seen memes. I've seen articles. But we're going to give you guys our thoughts on these first introductions back into this world, to these new characters. By the way, HBO has this amazing character guide, because I know I personally was getting confused. So just go to hbo.com and they have this, it's literally a family tree. And you can see House of Targaryen, you can see House of Hightower, House of Valerian. It's amazing. So go check that out if you just need to see kind of how everything ties together. But Delora, let's just dive into the episode, right? So we are, as I mentioned, back into the world of Game of Thrones. It's set 200 years before the events of the Game of Thrones that we came into, and before Daenerys is around and trying to break her chains. And we are introduced to a time where the House of Targaryen is, living their best lives. We have the family in power, led by King Viserys, and his brother Daemon is over here being a little troublemaker, vying to be, kind of his heir apparent, even though he has a daughter.
Being a little troublemaker. Okay.
I'm being nice for now, because we're gonna dive into some of his antics. But we have his daughter, who at the time it was not thought that she was going to be able to be his heir, because it's not something that women should be doing. Women shouldn't be on the throne. What? Rhaenyra. And then we also have his wife, who is pregnant and expecting potentially a male heir. So that's kind of where we get started. There is a little bit of history that they give about how Viserys got into power and all of that. But, we see in the central conflict. And, I feel like for this first episode, it really focused on lineage and on the kind of dissemination of power. Like, we're just getting introduced to this king, but we're already focused on who's next in line.
Yes, which I told Dave is Game of Thrones 2.0.
So when you first are getting into this episode and you're kind of getting into these characters and figuring everything out, what were your immediate first thoughts?
That this was really rich, really wealthy, and apparently they put all the dollars in this episode.
They said every episode is $15 to $20 million.
Period.
Crazy.
Easily.
Crazy.
Hands down. So honestly, watching the episode, it was all an getting reacclimated. Like, where are we in this world? Are we in King's Landing? Are we, in their ancestral home before they took over? Well, okay. And then you're like, oh, there's the Iron Throne. Okay. And to the point that I was making earlier, I showed Dave, I was like, oh, so this is just Game of Thrones within the Targaryen family. Got it.
Yep.
Like, Civil War is upon us.
Yep.
When I tell you, I was impressed with the wiggage this time around.
The wiggage.
I'm very appreciative of it because we had some issues in those earlier seasons, if you know what I mean.
It's hard for me to even pay attention to the hair because of how much death and destruction and rapage and all these other things are going on in Game of Thrones. Like, yeah, it's not a Tyler Perry film where I'm like, God, the wig department, what's going on? And this is always like, there's so many other factors that, I'm trying to figure out who's trying to kill who's about to backstab who is trying to maneuver and outmaneuver. Absolutely. Because
especially when we had the King's Council, I was like, okay, we have the hand of the king. Okay. When I saw
who in the hand of the king is trying to give his daughter as a
I was like, you're calling out his daughter? Is this what we're doing? And then was like, anything for the pleasure of the king, including your child? What? The king, read the king a story. Wear your mama's dress, sir.
Let me dial it back for just a second. So in this episode, like I said, we're really discussing lineage and the fact that Viserys got even to be king over his cousin, another woman in the family who was just as qualified. It's mentioned. It seems like that's also setting up conflict, and then you have the conflict between him and his brother.
Yes.
His brother right now is over the Night's Watch. And
I call his brother the spawn of Satan, by the way. Every time he comes on that screen, I'm like, he is trouble, to quote Taylor Swift.
Extremely prone to violence, extremely prone to rash decisions. In this first episode, we see him, they show a battle with,
he's untethered.
Him living his best life.
Who does he humble himself before? Who? It ain't God, it ain't his brother.
I saw people loving Damon's character, by the way, and I was like, are these people who just gravitate towards villainous characters, or is there something that I'm not seeing in Damon that you guys are seeing? Right. I know that there is a moment, a bonding moment between him and Rhaenyra that we're going to get to. But other than that, he had no redeeming qualities that I could see in this first episode, at least.
None. And like that meme I sent you that I got from E-Man's reviews, he's nothing but a big Joffrey for me.
And that's the thing, the level of cruelty that we've seen in the Game of Thrones universe, I definitely can't say that I don't think he's gone down that same path. That very violent scene where they went and rounded up all these people and did gross and horrific things to them in the street.
In the name of the king. I'm like, do we know that they actually did the crimes? Are they just picking random people in the street? It just seemed unhinged.
It was absolutely unhinged. And it was something that obviously his brother had to take the heat for him for. But I was almost wondering, how many times has this sort of thing happened over the course of y'all lives and over, the course of, him growing up? Has this just been kind of an unchecked rage and situation he has, because to the point of like Otto and some of the other people, if he was king, he would slaughter any enemy he ever encountered. And that's not the type of king that it seems like Viserys wants to be, because they talk about the king before him was a peacetime king, right? So we want to preserve peace.
Yeah, but he does come off as weak, though.
That's what Daemon said to him. But hey, I need a balance. Like,
yeah, no, I agree.
I think there's also strength in sitting back, absorbing what the folks around you are saying, but also taking into consideration, you know, overall what's going to be best for the people of the kingdom. Because that's one thing that is not actively talked about in the world of Game of Thrones. What is actually best for the people?
Oh my gosh. Never have the people been in anybody's forethought.
It was for Dany for a while, right? And then there was a flip.
But it was a God complex too that was very
there was a flip.
Uncomfortable with her, especially with the brown people. I'm like, what are we doing? What are we doing? But okay. Yeah. You know what I'm talking about.
Oh, absolutely. So one of the most heavily talked about scenes from this first episode is the death of the queen.
Girl.
It is a decision that the king makes about whether to save her or their unborn child when the child is breached during delivery. And apparently back then it was a 50-50 chance of survival when you have a baby, right?
I was like, so the cesarean section didn't exist? Because that's what I kept saying before they made that decision, because they're, you know, talking about the baby being stuck or whatever.
Yeah, it seems that they only had remedies that were found in whatever books of the era that were absolutely barbaric. I fast forwarded through this birthing scene. Apparently some women didn't think it went far enough. What did you think about this scene?
Oh my gosh, it's television. It is a television show where dragons exist. Why do we need any other examples of childbirthing than what we got? That was enough for me. I'm good. Thanks.
Apparently they wanted it to be even more visceral. I didn't want to watch it. I knew what was about to happen. I knew he was about to murder his wife. I guess I shouldn't even call it the birthing scene. It was a murder. It was a murder.
I knew he was thinking it. He was so obsessed with his male heir. And I was like, if this is not a boy, he's going to hate himself forever.
Well, I knew the baby wasn't going to survive too. I said, you're going to do all of this and the kid's going to die. And the kid
I feel like
did.
He also felt, and this is me also thinking, he felt comfortable making that decision because she told him she was going to try anymore. So this was his last stitch effort to get that male heir he wanted so much.
As king, it had never crossed his mind prior that he could change the rules and make his daughter his heir.
Soft. Where's a Lannister when you need one? I need someone who is clever, who drinks and knows things, okay?
You're hilarious. It was tragic. It was a tragic scene. I didn't need it to be any worse, especially because you did have it intercut with the battle scene, because they discussed it in some of the articles I read that, as the queen said, the birthing bed is the battlefield for a woman. So it was supposed to be kind of just that, you know.
I thought it was brilliant. It was bloody and brilliant.
It was bloody and it was a little bit too much for me. So that's why some of that was not watched, because y'all stay trying to traumatize people on these shows, but they got their message across, and it definitely set up the rest of the season, right? Because to see such a huge tragic decision be made right off the bat, obviously it's going to have repercussions. And again, Rhaenyra it's decided that she's going to be the heir because Daemon is overheard in a brothel, because Daemon, you know, that's how Daemon gets down. Calling his own deceased nephew heir for a day. This definitely rubbed the king in the absolute wrong way. How did you find that to be extremely offensive?
Hell yeah. And I hope he burned in hell too.
Tell us how you really feel.
I'm quoting the great Sam Jackson from A Time to Kill.
You taking it back.
Throwback.
I can't tell yet whether this is a responsibility that Rhaenyra is ready for. It seems like she may be conflicted.
Why do you think she's conflicted? I think, first of all, being an eldest daughter, she's absolutely ready for that job.
Listen to you. Whether she's ready is not what I'm saying. I'm wondering if she is conflicted about what this means for her life. I think this was something that she had thought was never going to be. So now she has to prepare herself for the inevitability of it all. And that's huge. I mean, to have been born thinking this is a response. I mean, that's like being the whatever in line to the throne. And then suddenly all those people are gone. And you're like, shit, I never thought I was going to be the one. Well, I never thought I was going to have that responsibility.
That's real life Queen Elizabeth. I mean, she was never supposed to be in succession based off her father's birth.
And honestly, they usually say that those make the best rulers because there's no ambition behind them. Mm-hmm. There's no greed. But in this case, we know that this is leading to a place of eventual war called the Dance of the Dragons, a civil war amongst the family. So
yep.
I'm just wondering how, obviously, as we progress in the season, it's all going to get set up, especially because we talked about Otto and him being the right hand of the king and him trying to push his daughter towards Viserys now. Alicent is a villain, apparently, in the books. She is going to be a rival of Rhaenyra, even though they're best friends right now.
And they seem like they have a little bit of a connection there that's a little bit more than sisterly, in my personal opinion.
I wasn't sure if that was just my imagination, because I thought that too. I was like, I don't usually be that physically close to my female friends, but that could just be me.
But don't get me wrong, I touch my friends, but we don't caress each other. So I'm like, are they trying to tell us something about their relationship?
I mean, it could be, and it would be even more interesting if that is one of the catalysts for them falling out, right? It's like love gone wrong.
Right.
So we'll see what happens. There are outlier characters that I don't feel like we necessarily need to dive too deep into on this first episode because they weren't necessarily prominent, but there's definitely setup in the situation with, the council that is around the king and Otto and Daemon to kind of see puzzle pieces being put into place for why there's going to be such a clash at some point in time. We see the dragons, we see the dragons living their best lives at the start of this.
All big and free.
There was the moment that Viserys had with Rhaenyra where he tells her about the story of Fire and Ice. And how there's going to come a time when humanity is going to have to come together and all this and that. And that it's an illusion that they have control over the dragons. Do you think that the dragons are going to turn against the Targaryens?
That's a great question. I don't think so. I think based off my understanding of the lore, the Targaryens and dragons are, hand in glove. So I think this event, though, the Civil War, is what accelerates, the decline in the number of dragons in general, though. I do think that plays a role because, again, they were, big and free, and
because they make them kill each other, essentially.
Exactly.
Why we got to be a part of this human mess? I'm sure is what the dragons were thinking. We were living, we were loving, we were loyal.
Yeah.
Anything else? Any other thoughts you had? Give me especially your thoughts on, I know you love scenery and production design. What do you think about the sets?
Gorgeous. It feels like home. I know some people aren't happy about it because, let's not kid ourselves. This stuff is very steeped in misogyny and grossness and violence. But one of my friends on Facebook was like, the way my toxic relationship is set up with Game of Thrones is I'm gonna be watching, the House of Dragons, and sure enough, they're like, welcome home.
Mm-hmm.
The things that I want to highlight are the following: all the fallout, especially with Black folks. We have a hashtag on Twitter, Dem Dragons. If you remember during Game of Thrones, if you ever wanted to know Black people's perspective, it was always Dem Thrones. Now is Dem Dragons. That's the new hashtag. One of my favorite tweets, there's been several, but it has everything to do with Lord Valyrian. One of my favorite things he did in that whole episode, and somebody said this on Twitter, is like the blackest thing that happened in this whole episode was Lord Valyrian knowing not to get drunk around white people.
He sure did say, "Nah, I'm good."
He's like, I'm good. Decisions are being made. I'm going to be aware. And, I'm paraphrasing it because I can't remember where I found it, but there was an interview with the Black actor. And of course, people were up in arms to see a Black person in a fantasy world. And he's like, this world has dragons. Why can't there be a Black person here? Like, you can miss me with that. And the fact that, he's married to a powerful Targaryen and everything like that. I'm loving it. Super excited.
I just realized that his wife her mother was a Baratheon. I'm looking at this HBO character guide, and
where is this HBO character guide?
It's on HBO.com, and there's a character guide for it. But her mother was Jocelyn Baratheon. Fascinating.
What?
Yeah, it's on HBO.com. Just Google.
But yeah, it's back to the meme again that I was talking about earlier. We have little Daenerys, hilarious. We King versus Mad King for the king. My two favorites, Jamaican Targaryen, which is the Black man, and then Mrs. Jamaican Targaryen.
I did like his hair.
He looks so good. I'm telling you, the wigs are on point this year. So, I mean, it better be with as much money they put in. So, seriously. I'm ready for the drama. I'm ready for the backstab. I'm ready for because the one thing about Game of Thrones in this world, the surprises, they are just so big and rich. I just don't know what's in store.
The last thing I want to say is I'm so glad George R.R. Martin is heavily invested in this particular series and heavily involved.
Yeah.
I feel like hopefully that means that there will not be the fan disappointment that we experienced from the original series, because he is the most invested person in the world in accurately telling these stories, right? So I'm excited. This first episode excited me. It was a slow burn, but I had expected and anticipated a slow burn because that's how Game of Thrones started. You need to invest. You cannot start out on 10. Y'all gave me some moments, but I don't need the whole first show to be stressful. So I appreciate, let me get in here. Let me get a handle on these characters. Let me see what's going on.
Absolutely.
And I'm sorry, one last thing. Why is Viserys getting cut up by this damn throne? Is he gonna be okay?
We king.
Like physically, they got this man up here, got a cut in his back that has not healed from sitting on his throne.
The other thing I wanted to mention too is they talked about cauterizing it, and they should be able to, and he should be fine because Targaryens have a relationship with fire that's they can withstand it because, they're dragon people.
But I wonder if he's going to, this is just a setup for him to die prematurely and to
absolutely
force the hand of, obviously, the path we're going down. So let's see what else is in store. Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon. All right. That's all we got for y'all today, guys. We're going to get on up out of here. Delora, what are we recapping for the people for next week?
All right, Ashley, we are still dealing with fairy tales and monsters because we are recapping Netflix It was number 1 for 2 weeks. It's now number 3. Day Shift, starring the one, the only Jamie Foxx.
The multi-hyphenate, multi-talented Jamie Foxx. Gotcha. All right, guys. We'll see you next time. Be safe. Be blessed.
Bye.